Hello, everyone, and welcome to another heavenly broadcast. Today is day 6 in the Resurrection Sermon series. It's titled Preparing for the Sacrifice. The Last Supper stands as one of the most profound and intimate moments in Jesus' earthly journey. It was not just a meal shared among friends, but a moment of deep revelation, a prelude to the ultimate sacrifice. As we reflect on this night, we step into the mind of Christ, understanding the weight of what lied ahead and the love that carried him forward. Jesus knew what was coming: the agony of betrayal, the loneliness of abandonment, and the excruciating pain of crucifixion. These were not just distant possibilities, they were near certainties. Yet, as he reclined at the table with his disciples, he didn't waver. He embraced this moment, not just with despair, but with intentionality. Every word he spoke, every action he took was deliberate, laced with the full awareness of his impending sacrifice. Imagine knowing that in just a few hours, you would endure the most brutal form of execution. How heavy that burden must have been. And yet, Jesus chose to spend his final moments teaching, loving, and preparing his disciples for what was to come. The Last Supper was not just a farewell meal. It was a masterclass in service, humility, and divine love. One of the most striking moments of the Last Supper was when Jesus took off his outer garment, wrapped a towel around his waist, and began to wash the feet of his disciples. This was the duty of a servant, not a teacher, not a king. Yet, here was the Son of God, kneeling before those who would soon abandon and betray him. Perhaps the most astonishing part of this act was that Jesus washed Judas' feet. He knew Judas had already conspired with the religious leaders to betray him. He knew that in mere hours, Judas would lead soldiers to arrest him with a kiss. And yet Jesus knelt before him, cleaning his feet, just as he did for all the disciples. What does this teach us? It teaches us that Jesus' love was not conditional. He did not serve only those who were faithful to him. He served even those who he knew would turn against him. How often do we struggle to show kindness to those we know have wronged us? Yet Jesus demonstrated that true humility and love transcends betrayal. As the meal continued, Jesus broke the bread and shared the wine, forever transforming a simple tradition into the most sacred act of remembrance. He lifted the bread and said, "This is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me." Then he took the cup and supped, saying, "This is the cup in my new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." The disciples didn't fully grasp the weight of these words at the moment. The idea of Jesus' body being broken and his blood being poured out was still a distant memory to them. But Jesus knew. He understood that he was able to become the Passover lamb, the ultimate sacrifice for the sins of humanity. For centuries, the Jewish people had practiced the Passover meal, remembering how the blood of a lamb had protected their ancestors in Egypt. Now, Jesus was revealing that he was the lamb, that his blood would be the ultimate covering, not just for one nation, but for all of humanity. To non-believers, this message might seem like a distant, abstract concept. But consider this. Jesus was offering himself so that everyone, believers and skeptics alike, might have access to grace, love, and redemption. This was not an exclusive invitation. It was a universal gift. It's easy to read these events and forget that Jesus was fully human as well as fully divine. The emotions he experienced were real. The sorrow, the weight of betrayal, the deep longing for his disciples to truly understand. These were all profoundly felt. Jesus felt these things. Jesus openly acknowledged the betrayal at the table. In Matthew 26:21, he states, "One of you will betray me." The room must have fallen silent, tension thick in the air. Even Peter, one of his closest friends, would soon deny him 3 times. Jesus knew that by the time the sun rose, he would be utterly alone, abandoned by those he loved the most. How must that have felt? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you ever felt completely alone in your suffering? Jesus knew that pain. He walked that path. But one of the most beautiful aspects of Jesus' journey to the cross is that he is relatable. For those who've been betrayed, he understands. For those who have suffered unjustly, he's been there. For those who've had felt abandoned, he's walked that road. Jesus' sacrifice is not just about taking on the sins of the world. It was about experiencing the depths of human suffering so that no one could ever say, "God doesn't understand my pain." If you're someone who's never heard about Jesus or perhaps never considered his story deeply, know this. He didn't just die for the religious. He didn't just die for those who already believe. He died for you. He died for me. He died for every single person walking this earth, no matter their past, no matter their doubts, and no matter their struggles. The Last Supper was more than just a moment in history. It was the call to live differently. Jesus' instructions were clear. Serve one another. If the Son of God could wash the feet of his betrayers, how much more should we humble ourselves to serve others? Love without condition. He loved even those who turned against him. Our love should not be based on who deserves it, but on the example that Jesus set. And always remember the sacrifice. Every time we break bread, every time we reflect on his word, we're called to remember the price he paid. As Jesus left that room and walked toward the Garden of Gethsemane, he carried the full weight that was to come. The agony of the cross were mere hours away, yet he pressed forward for you, for me, for everyone. The Last Supper was not just a farewell meal. It was the silent prelude to the greatest act of love the world has ever seen. Jesus sat at the table fully aware of the suffering that was awaiting him. Yet his heart was not filled with fear. It was filled with love. Whether you're a believer or someone still searching for answers, know this. Jesus' sacrifice was for you. He walked the path of suffering so that no one would have to walk alone. His love is not distant or conditional. It's real, it's tangible, and it's waiting to be embraced. The question is, how will you respond to it? So today, let's not just partake in the table. Let's take up the towel. Let's go beyond remembering and start living it out. Let's serve with humility and love without limits. And give ourselves up as Jesus did. The Last Supper wasn't just a moment, it was a mission.